Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 9th, 2022 Select Board Meeting. We are all in person here, but we do invite the public to participate via Zoom. We are going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 this evening, and tonight we are being recorded and broadcast by our friends at WACA-TV. So with that, we will go ahead and open it up for citizens' participation. I see a hand. I see Joel Arbeitman. Joel, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? Nope, you're still muted. There
How's
you go.
that?
There you go.
Beautiful. Thank you. Am I all set to go here?
Yep, go right ahead, Joel.
All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm making the following. I'm going to read this quickly because it's long and I hope to get as much of it in as possible. Making the following comments as the founder and operator of the Ashland Bike Club and not as a member of the Ashland Upper Charles Trail Committee. I have planned more than 500 bike club routes averaging between 25 and 30 miles in length. Club members have ridden more than 350,000 total miles in more than 50 cities and towns in Massachusetts. And during our 10 years, no club member has ever been hit by a car. That's a safety record club members are very proud of. I want to talk to the board and the Ashland residents about complete streets planning. A few years ago, Ashland received its first Complete Streets grant. At that time, we spoke about making it safer for walkers and bike riders in town. I have a number of questions about what Ashland has done to make bike riding safer. How many bike lanes has Ashland added to enhance rider safety on non-state controlled roads? Have we added crosswalks with user-activated flashing warning lights for bike riders, or even any safety signage? Do we have a bicycle safety master plan for the town? Has our traffic safety committee been charged with the mission of making Ashland's roads safer for bike riders? Have we increased the number of children who bicycle to school? Do parents think it's safe for their children to bicycle on Ashland's roads? Do we have the expertise on our town staff to make bike riding safer in Ashland? It would be great. I noticed you had the MBTA gate on your agenda tonight. I just have a brief comment on that. It would be great to make the MBTA gate at the train station safer to allow bicycle passage until the Upper Charles Trail is connected to High Street. The gate is unsafe for bike riders, and turning left off Pleasant Street onto High Street, that's down by Burnham's, is also very dangerous. A number of people have raised concerns to me about Route 126 as it relates to bicycle safety. I've been told indirectly by the planning department and by Beth Reynolds that there will be continuous bike lanes on Route 126 as part of the redesign project. This is great news. It's exactly what was called for in the 100% final design plans for the road. However, several questions about this still remain. With the exception of the roundabout area, has MassDOT recently confirmed that there will be continuous bike lanes? Several people have observed that the road as constructed appears too narrow to deploy bike lanes at some locations. Is the public permitted to attend and participate in the town's weekly meetings with MassDOT about the 126 project? The Ashland Upper Charles Trail has a small section on 126 that runs basically from Market Basket southbound up to the Dyke Trail. MassDOT blueprints show an 8-foot wide sidewalk that is planned to be part of Ashland's Upper Charles Trail. At that point, the trail is supposed to cross Route 126 via a crosswalk to access the Dyke Trail. A recent conversation with Peter Matchak and Beth Reynolds indicated that they were not aware of this crossing. So will there indeed be a crosswalk there? Will it be supported by a user-activated flashing warning signal so that cars will have to stop for bike riders and pedestrians? The MassDOT plan seems to indicate a wheelchair-friendly ramp at this crossing, but town staff appears to be unaware of the plan. Additional bike lanes. I'm almost done. Bike lanes should not be standalone islands. They need to be networked. With the state's deployment of bike lanes on Route 126, has the town made plans to create bike lanes on Elliott Street, Fruit Street, Prospect Street, and Main Street, Cedar Street, and Corderville Road to provide residents from neighborhoods in other parts of Ashland with safe access to get to Route 126? Regarding downtown, Ashland decided not to provide bike lanes on Main Street in downtown Ashland, but bike riders were promised sharrows that would allow them to ride right in the travel lanes. Are sharrows still being planned for Main Street? Will these sharrows be supported with signs that clearly inform motorists that bike riders may use the full travel lane? I'd be happy to discuss any or all of these ideas with members of the board or the town manager at any point. Bike rider safety is very much a matter of life and death. While no system will ever be perfect, Ashland should do all it reasonably can to ensure the safety of its bike riding public. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Joel. Obviously, there's quite a bit that was in your statement, so we'll have to take a look at some of that and get back to you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. I don't know, Michael, can you answer any of those right now, or just?
We're going to have a public hearing in like a couple minutes. I don't necessarily want to
Right,
get
well,
into
okay.
too much unless there's something quick there.
I mean, I could quickly say, Joel, thank you for your message and your concern and your continued advocacy. I think it's important. I did talk to Beth today. She is going to get you the rest of her answers, or the rest of the answers to your question. You sent a very long, detailed list of questions, and very, very thorough. And it takes our staff a lot of time sometimes to go and get those answers for you. So I know a lot of them have been answered, so just please be patient with, Beth and Peter, as they have a lot of other things that they're doing as well to try to get you to the questions, or get your answers to your questions. In terms of bike lanes on Elliott, Fruit, no, we haven't thought about that. I think we're just getting by. We're just managing what we have right now with the resources that we have. We don't have extra resources to look at that stuff right now. And with downtown, yes, they're still planning to do the sharrows. I don't know about the signage. I'll have to look into that.
Two very quick comments. One, nobody in the real world knows what sharrows mean to motorists, so I think without signage it will be risky at best. And the big question, I more than appreciate the limitations on staff resources. I appreciate that. My question is, would it be possible for me to attend one of the Mass DOT meetings so that I can raise these issues directly rather than relying on second level communication through the town staff?
Now, those are more coordinating, more about coordination, Joel, than anything. And there's not any discussion about Elliott or Fruit Street or anything at those meetings.
I was talking mostly about 126 itself and exactly how the road will be constructed.
Randy, can I jump in for just a second?
Sure.
So Joel, hold on. I did bring up the intersection with the trail, and that is gonna be there. And I was trying to go through my email, because I was sent a map of the street, and it is there, and I believe they're actually even currently working on it in that area.
So, if I may, Madam Chair, you're referring to the request for having the signs, the flashing lights and stuff for the changeover, so when the bikes go from one side of 126 to the other,
Yes.
those signs will be there and they'll be flashing and everything like that? Well, that answers one of his questions. And Joel, the other question, the Traffic Study Committee has not been given any direction as to add that to our list of requests. So I can give you a direct answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, let's go ahead and, I don't know if there's any other folks that are here for citizens' participation, but let's go ahead and open up the tax classification hearing. Let me read the legal notice, and then we will come back to citizens' participation after the tax classification hearing. Legal notice, Town of Ashland Select Board, in accordance with the requirements of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56, the Select Board will hold a public hearing on fiscal 2023 property tax classification on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022 at 7:10 p.m. at the Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the percentages of the FY 2023 tax levy to be borne by each class of taxable real and personal property. Meeting information will be posted on the agenda, which can be found on the town website, www.ashlandmass.com. Persons wishing to be heard on this matter are invited to attend the public hearing in person or by logging into the Zoom meeting. Interested parties who are unable to attend the hearing may submit written comments to the Select Board's office, Town Hall, 101 Main Street, Ashland, Mass. 01721, or by emailing Susan Roby at sroby@ashlandmass.com. Could I get a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go ahead and, I see Rich here. Do you want to come on up? So we have Rich Ball, our assessor, here with us in person this evening. Hi, Rich. How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, very busy. I just want to point out that tonight's meeting, we opened the classification hearing, but we won't close it tonight. Generally, tonight, the Select Board will take a vote whether to split the rate or go with a single rate. That's the only thing the board needs to do tonight as far as the classification hearing. We will come back to it at the next meeting, I believe, and close that out. But we can't close it out until we know exactly, what the levy excess is going to be. And so, we have to get past the special town meeting in order to determine that, so.
Okay.
And a lot of what I'm gonna say tonight, I said last year and probably the year before,
You could have done this on,
and next year as well.
on a recording.
It's just, it boggles my mind the way, where the real estate market has gone. And it's not slowing down. I see the deeds still coming through on a monthly basis. And I don't know. It's a good time to be selling your house. But where are you gonna go? Because wherever you go, you gotta probably pay just as much, so.
So we did get some slides that were in our packet.
Yes.
Do we want to share them on the screen? Possible. Do we have them? All right. Rich, I think we can go ahead and get started while we
Okay.
figure out the technology.
Yeah, no, that's
So-
fine.
Because we all have this in front of us, too.
Yes,
so.
that's good. And my intention is not to spend a lot of time with this package, but I just wanted you to be aware of what we're faced with in the local real estate market and what we need to use to generate our assessments for this year and future years. But I just want to say, we're into fiscal year 2023 now. We're winding down with the assessments. Well, in fact, the assessments have pretty much been set already. And a lot of this year's assessments are based off of what's happened in calendar year 2021, so there's a bit of a lag time, but that's the way it is in the assessing world. And it's just the way it is. So, you know, the upcoming tax billing cycle, January 1st tax bills, a lot of people will be getting their tax bill January 1st, and it's all been based off of calendar year 2021 sales, which can be almost 2 years ago, but that's all built into the Mass General laws, and we have to abide by those. So in 2021, the real estate market really took off. I mean, it was continually, you know, steadily moving up from year to year. But in 2021, and just pretty much right after COVID, it just took off. And again, we're kind of set with these parameters and how we base our assessments. So if the real estate market is running very high, we have to, in kind, create our assessments pretty much to follow the market to a certain extent. So I just want to go through the list real quick to give you an idea. The single-family homes this year, pretty much saw a 14% increase from the previous year. And that's, I mean, that's pretty large, but some were a lot more, some were less. So that's just an average. Condominiums, same thing, about 14% from last year. The 2 and 3 family homes, about 15%. We had a good number of sales in that class, so gives us a good idea. Not much going on with the vacant buildable lots. We don't see many sales there. The large apartment complexes, rather than give you an average increase, basically I just, the total class of all of the large apartment complexes from last year to this year is pretty much doubling as a class. So the total value of that same class last year pretty much doubled to this year, FY23. We had a couple of major sales in the large apartment complexes. We've also got some pretty good data to work with to support our assessments.
Rich, can you just pause 1 second? I'm going
Yes.
to try to pull this up. It's not working.
No luck.
No. Is Susan a host?
Doesn't say it's a host. It doesn't say she's host on the participant.
Can we make her a host and then she can share them?
Doesn't have anybody as the host right now.
Jen is the host.
Oh,
And I become host. Okay, I'm done, so I might be able to share them.
yeah. Okay. All right.
Say make sure it's as documents that you can share.
Jen's good at multitasking.
Or like not.
Here, okay.
No pressure, Jen.
Let's just keep going
Yeah.
while you work.
I just have to flip it, that's my problem. It's right here.
Can we do it?
No. I'll trust my hands.
Betcha, I can figure it out.
How about you? There, Paul.
Why don't you
Let's
keep
keep
going?
going.
I'll keep going? Okay. All
Hopefully
right.
the technology
All
will
right.
catch up.
Just to round out the different classes from last year to this year, mixed use was up mostly through the apartments, the residential side of the mixed use. A lot of that was driving, like the large apartment complexes, any type of apartment housing was up. Commercial industrial increased about 10%, and the personal property, not much change there compared to last year, just because last year on the personal property, there was a one-time bump from the utilities that bumped up the total number last year, and this year it's
Quick question,
flat.
Rich. When the mixed use, an example, 21 Main Street?
21 Main Street,
128 Main Street?
12 Pond
that's-
Street.
Okay.
yeah. Before anybody at home gets really excited about this increase of 15%, there's always a trade-off. And what the trade-off is as one goes up, the other comes down, and I'm talking about the tax rate. As the assessments go up, the tax rate should come down, and that's generally how it works. Up top on the same page, I just quickly gave you an example of what it looked like last year with the tax rate of 1588. And this year, it's a projected tax rate, and it's only an estimate. It looks like it's going to drop way down. I've got an estimate of $14.31. So that's well below what last year's tax rate was. And of course, if you're still looking at averages, that averages out. So the higher assessment, the lower tax rate, it just averages out to a modest increase from last year to this year. And that's how it works. It's not like everybody's taxes are going way up because of a high assessment. Again, you take the high assessment times the lower tax rate, and it works out to be about the same or a modest increase from last year. And that's the way it is for most taxpayers, a modest increase from year to year.
So, Rich, the way that, because we work within Prop 2.5,
Yeah.
and the tax levy can only go up 2.5%. So, which is why it has that inverse relationship between the tax rate and the assessment. So, because you're right. So if people are looking at their assessed value,
Yeah.
and it's gone up 14%, it doesn't mean their taxes are going to go up 14%.
No, not at all.
Okay. So.
Good point.
So, Rich,
Yeah.
also, so this average tax bill you have,
Yes,
so that's for single-family homes.
yes.
So it's not the average tax bill of all residential.
Oh, no, that's
Properties.
just for single-family homes. Yes.
So once you
Yeah.
factor in the condominiums, it would be less. The average tax bill across town would average less, right?
Well, the condominiums, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it's more of the same.
Yeah, so Rich, I guess, so a condominium is not gonna, the average condominium value is going to be less than the average single-family home value, correct?
Yes, generally it is, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the average tax bill, because it would still be using the same tax rate of
Yes.
1431, so the average tax bill would be less than a single-family home.
Yes, I see
Okay.
what you're saying. And then if you compare it to last year, you're gonna see that modest increase from last year.
And are you, I know some towns wait a little while. I mean, seems to be a little bit early, just a tad bit early, to do the classification hearing. But do you know what other communities' increases are, like around us?
I don't know. From what I understand, especially from our Department of Revenue advisor, a lot of the communities are going through the same thing, that the parameters that they have for each market, they're seeing the same increase, mostly on the residential side, from a year ago to now. Just, a lot of the purchase prices have spiked from last year to this year, and we're well into 2022, calendar year 2022, and we're still seeing an increase in values in the market. And most other communities are seeing the same thing. So it's not like Ashland is just an isolated case. It's pretty much happening across the board.
Hey, so another question, Rich. So when a house is sold, does the new value of that home, I mean, we're seeing homes that are being purchased typically above asking price. Does that value kick in immediately as the new assessed value for that home?
No, we can only set our values once a year. Generally, I start in the spring, early spring, analyzing all of the sales that occurred the year before. Go through the spring, summer, and it's like early fall when I really compile a lot of the data and generate a new set of assessments. But we can only change it once a year. The only exception is new growth. If there's anything new during the course of that year, a new sunroom or anything, we're allowed to add that into the value. But again, I'm kind of set on looking at the previous years, calendar years, purchase prices, and that comes through on a monthly basis, and I have to set my assessments accordingly based off that. So I'll give you an example. Anything that has sold in this year, 2022, that data won't be analyzed for the most part until next spring. That'll be the next cycle of assessments for FY24. So it's all cyclical.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah. If you want to flip to the next page, basically this page is just a comparative page. It shows you total valuation from this year compared to last year, so we can see what happened collectively from last year to this year. And you can see up top the new valuation for the town compared to FY22's valuation on the right-hand side. And we saw about a 15% increase total valuation from last year to this year. That's a pretty good number. I've never worked with that number before as far as doing the tax classification, but it's where the market is, and I can't apologize for that. So it's
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely.
So just to clarify, so when we're looking at this page, it has residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property.
Yes.
So from the previous page, single family, condo, multifamily, large complex, those all go into the residential
Those are all
number?
residential, yes.
Thank you, just wanted to
Yes.
clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So essentially, you have two major groups, the residential, and there's a little bit of open space. And then you have commercial, industrial, and personal property, CIP. And if you look further down at the bottom, you can see the ratio of the two. And then you can compare it to the previous year, FY '22. Mine says 21 for some reason, but I hope yours says 22. Anyway, you can see that the residential side ticked upward a little bit, and the commercial side went down a little bit.
Yeah. So, Rich, another question.
Yes.
And I believe, Michael, you answered this for me at one point. You know, the large-scale apartment complexes are categorized as residential in our Massachusetts environment. Is that a state statute that requires that?
Yeah.
Because there's other entities, governments that categorize that as a commercial property rather than residential.
Right. In theory, we do the same. We think of it as, because it's so big, some of these complexes are so big, that it almost makes sense if they show up on the commercial side.
Well, it's not ownership,
but
so that's one of the distinctions, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's dictated by state law?
By state law, yes. Yeah. Residential.
Rich, it looks like the percentage of commercial has decreased, you know, from FY '22, but it looks almost like that's really just because of the higher valuation of the residential versus less commercial. So we're not losing commercial.
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
No, both groups have gone up, but the residential side went up a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
There's no questions. I just want to flip to the third page. That's the options page. And essentially, this gives you an idea of where the tax rate would go if it were split. So right now, at a single rate, it's projected to be $14.31. And again, keep in mind that can and probably will change before now and getting approved in Boston, simply because there's always changes on to the levy once we submit the recap sheet and that sort of thing. So that could come into play but for all intents and purposes, an estimated rate of $14.31. If Ashland were to shift, I just broke it down into increments of 5%, just to give you an idea of where the tax rate would be. So, in other words, at a 5% shift, the residential tax rate, and again, if there is a shift, now you're talking about two tax rates instead of one. So what would happen is the residential would drop down to $14.24, a difference of 7 cents off the single rate. The commercial side would bump up to $15.03, an increase of 72 cents. And you can go through the list at the 5% increments and see what the differences would be. Up top on the right-hand side, this may help you a little bit more. The difference in every 1% shifted from the single rate results in 1.4 cents on the residential side as a decrease and a plus 14.4 cents on the commercial side as an increase. So that just gives you an idea of where the rate would go if Ashland shifted the rate. Of course, one would come down, I would say marginally. The residential would come down marginally. The commercial side of it would go up substantially. And I've always felt that in order to bring in commercial business, I think it's important, to have maybe a lower tax rate, just to promote that.
Joe?
Madam Chair, thank you. Rich, thanks. I a quick question with respect to what you just told us, with respect to residential and commercial. Where we have a single tax rate,
Yes.
how does that affect, the 14.1 cent increase?
No, that
Oh,
hypothetically.
this is hypothetically? Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha. Okay.
If Ashland were to go with a split rate,
Yeah.
the hypothetical shifts, residential would come down a little bit, commercial side would go up substantially.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Isn't there like sort of a certain number that you would want the split to be? I want to say it's like 85-15 or something along those lines to make it more equitable for the businesses and to make it kind of a better idea to do that split rate?
Yes, absolutely. The rule of thumb has always been that 85-15 split. And Ashland, especially this year now, Ashland is going the other way and getting further and further away from that split there. So, on the residential side is into the lower 90s now. So in my opinion, it doesn't make sense. And you can see at the bottom that the Board of Assessors strongly recommend a single rate.
Just a question, so, just to follow up, so
Yep.
what do you mean 85-15%? That's a parameter for what?
It's a rule of thumb. If your commercial value in your community gets up to about 15% and your residential is only running around 85%, that kind of warrants maybe a further discussion on whether you might want to split your tax rate at that point to give the residential side, the homeowners, a bit of a break. And
What's the rationale behind that? If you're at 15%, you're attracted to businesses and you can tax them more, like what?
No, it's just a rule of thumb that a lot of communities, if they're well under that rule of thumb, 85-15%, don't even think about splitting a rate. The single rate,
With the assumption that the commercial rate's gonna be higher and therefore.
yeah, of course.
Well, so, yeah, thanks for that information, Rich. So my question here is, so it looks like residential has gone up something like, what was it, 14 or 18% in
Mhm.
value since last year? And the commercial has gone up just 10%. So if we keep them at the same rate, aren't we kind of subsidizing businesses and having residential pay kind of their share? Because, to go back to your point about the increase in the appraisals, then results in a decrease in the rate, but the businesses aren't adding as much to that appraisal. You know what I'm saying? So is there a different way of looking at this? Like, what would the rate be if we had a split tax rate to hold everyone to the same percentage increase from last year? Do you have that number?
I don't, and I'm not sure you can do that. I honestly don't know how you could justify doing that.
What do you mean, we can vote on a split tax rate, so I'm not.
Right.
So if business A, their taxes go from 100 to 110, that's a 10% increase, or 102, so that's 2% increase. The residential on average goes, it's a knowable answer. You
I
can
think
set
if
the
that's
split
your-
tax rate so everybody has the same percentage increase, can't you?
I suppose maybe there is a way. I think you would have to really spend a lot of time
Really?
and figuring out whether you want, what type of shift.
Well, I
To
don't know,
shift
maybe
the
it's so
burden?
insignificant we don't care, but it would seem to me that if the residential is going up 2.5%, right? Is that more or less gonna be correct?
No, that's the tax levy.
Yeah, but everybody should be thinking, right? if your appraisal goes up so much, but you're reducing the rate such that you stay within the levy, people are mostly looking at 2.5% increase, aren't
Yeah.
they?
No, it's
No,
actually going down.
no,
If you look
no.
at the, if you look at the
How is that
tax
possible?
rates, it's going from 1588 to 1431.
Yeah, but
Right,
that's-
but-
So the
that's
tax
in-
rate
that's
is
inverse
decreasing.
to, it's like bonds and interest rates
Yeah,
that have an inverse relationship. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Values are going up, the rate's going down. We need
Right.
to assess a certain amount of money.
Exactly.
And that's the relationship. You know, to go to Rob's point, could you calculate that 10% increase and kind of match it and equate it to the residential? But I think it's so small, the benefit
Maybe
is so
that's the
small
answer, yeah.
to the residential, that it doesn't really make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. So, Rich, so if the residential is going up, people's taxes are going up around 2.5, I know it's not exact. Are the businesses under this going up on average, what, 2%, maybe somewhat less? That's my point, because they're in effect sharing the residential increased appraisal that they don't have. If they were the same increase, it would be irrelevant. But I may go with Steve anyway and just say, you know, it's probably kind of
I
insignificant.
think you're
but-
talking pennies, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, okay. So, Rich, think about that concept, though. Be good to have that answer.
I don't know what your goal is. That everybody pays the same? I don't
No,
know.
no,
No, trying
well-
to, so, Rich, I think the goal that he's talking about is try to keep things equal in terms of going up, trying to keep things equal amongst the residential versus the commercial.
So everybody pays the same.
Well, essentially,
The
that's,
same, in this case, the same percentage increase from
Yeah.
last year.
But,
So they might
so-
have a different valuation. It might have a different tax rate to achieve that. That's all I'm
Yeah.
suggesting.
So,
Something we should think about if this kind of trend continues.
so I think, I'll try this again. So residential, the average residential is going up 14%. Commercial's only going up 10%.
right.
Can you establish a rate structure to where it's basically that the 14% is going to equate to a value, right? In an amount increase after you look at the tax rate. Is there a way to structure it where the commercial properties that are only going up 10%, can that rate then be adjusted to where basically it's going up the same, equally and fairly?
Right, and you would have to do that if you shifted
So you would
the
have to do
burden
a
and
shift.
split the
He
rate.
wants to, he's looking to artificially get to a 90-10 split or the 85-15 split by manipulating the values of the different properties.
No, I don't know
No,
that.
that's not it.
Yeah. I
No,
don't
it's just, the idea would be, so there might be a slightly higher tax rate on businesses, but since their appraisal didn't go up as much, they would pay roughly the same percentage increase as residential who had a lower tax rate from last year, that's all. But maybe, you know,
I
think
know
it's an
what you're
interesting
saying.
concept.
I
Yeah,
can't articulate
and
it.
it's a good conversation, except the return is so
I think you're
small
probably right, yeah.
Right,
that
the
it doesn't make
benefit to the
sense
residents,
effort to-
Yeah.
right, the change to the
change.
residents' tax rate would be so little.
But
And
Rob
the
is right.
increase, but the increase to the businesses could be that much more, that it would then say,
Right.
why are you giving me a higher tax rate?
And that's why the 85,
15.
15%,
Right.
that's where it starts to make sense, because you start getting more value for the residential
for
taxpayer.
this
Right.
purpose. Okay,
Commercial. I mean, and I will say, I mean, and Beth can tell you, one of the things that makes Ashland attractive to businesses is our single tax rate.
Right.
So it's definitely a policy decision,
okay,
but I can't articulate it right now, Rob, but I know
yeah.
what
yeah.
you're trying to say.
I'm good.
Okay, just to finish up, the last page, I show you this graph here. You can see where the tax rate has come down the last 10 years, which is pretty good. It's good for Ashland. I think there's there's a few different things that factor into that. Mostly, of course, it's the real estate market that helps, obviously, but, you know, on the other side of the equation, you've got your levy, which is spending, and I think Ashland's done a very good job holding the line and being responsible, fiscally responsible. So the residents in Ashland do see a tax rate coming down every year.
Well, at the same time, though, they see home values increasing as well. Now, you know, I
Yeah,
think.
of course.
That's a
all-
positive.
But that's a positive thing.
It is a
It's not,
positive.
you know, it's,
Yeah.
from a homeowner, that's a positive thing.
Yes,
But
that
this
was
is, again, the fact that it's going down is merely a reflection of the values going up.
Right.
You know, it's not
Yeah.
that the assessors are doing something out of the, you know, something that is, I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
So, I mean, I think it's important to note that, you know, we're talking about one end of the equation, which is, you know, tax rates and assessed value and how you get to a tax levy.
Right.
But all of this is predicated on your expenditures.
Correct.
It's all predicated on expenditures. And, you know, if you're spending within your 2.5 levy limit, you know, you like to see your assessed values go up and your tax rate goes down. I mean, that's good. If the tax rate went up or stayed the same as your values were going up, it means we would be spending more.
But it also goes, I think, and we're going to talk about this, I think, when we talk about the moratorium, because I think there's implications there as well when you're talking about improving underutilized properties in town and the impact on you know, revenues to the town that might benefit, you know, homeowners as a whole.
Right.
Rich, do you have more in your presentation, or is that?
I don't. No, I'll just close out by saying that historically, Ashland's, compared to the surrounding towns, historically, ends up with a lower tax rate than the surrounding towns. I had my office call around this week just to see where we're at as far as, you know, a projection of a tax rate. And most of the communities hadn't had their tax rate approved yet, so and some of them hadn't even gone to classification hearing yet, so I couldn't tell. But in the past, Ashland has always been the lowest out of, you know, the surrounding half dozen communities, so. Bodes well for Ashland.
Thank you, Rich.
Brandy, one more
Sure.
thing I
Yep,
have.
go ahead.
Rich, I don't want you to get into the specifics, but just let folks know about, you know, what they should do if they're looking to get an abatement or participate in tax relief programs that are available in town. What
Now,
should
when
they
you say
do? Who should they
abatement,
contact?
when you say abatement, you're talking about exemptions, probably.
Whatever that means.
Yes, I mean, we have a number of exemptions that a lot of the homeowners qualify for. We have the senior exemption. We have, you know, the blind, the veterans, and things like that. From year to year, most people that qualified in the past generally qualify for each year. We do lose some residents on an annual basis, but on the other side, we do gain more
Yeah.
that qualify for exemptions. But I would say just contact our office or stop by
Yeah,
if you're
great.
in the town hall. And everything's up on the website as well, the different exemptions that we have, and we have checklists. We have guides, so people can look and see what the town offers for exemptions. And I'm not saying that the town offers exemptions. Everything comes from the Department of Revenue. It's all Mass General laws. So whatever exemptions that's written into the Mass General laws as a community, Ashland will offer.
Very good, thank you.
Does anyone else have any?
Where do you, okay. I would just ask Rich, on the very first page, you did that comparison for us of single-family average tax bill for 22 versus 23.
Yes,
I would say I like seeing that. I would say if for the next time, for next year, if you could add it for all of those line items, it would
Sure.
be nice to see that difference, and it's just a calculation, so
yes,
I think it would be good to add that to that page in
Yes.
future
Yeah.
presentations.
definitely.
And just, I always look at this and go, what the benefit would be to residential if we did a split tax rate, and as you said, there's really no benefit right now.
No,
Yes, it
right
would save
now,
us a
no.
few pennies, but we're trying to increase our business, we're trying to increase that amount, and if we can keep it at one tax rate to keep our businesses wanting to
Right,
come here, I
right.
think that's a benefit. That was it, thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments, questions? We're good? All right. Thank you, Rich, and thank you to the Board of Assessors for all your work on this. So with that, we only need to take action on whether to do a single or a split rate tonight, so.
I move that we move forward with a single tax rate for fiscal year '23.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0. Great.
Great.
And so just before we move on our agenda, I know we had opened up the hearing. I just want to check in to see if there's any other citizens here for participation before we move on in our agenda. I see Mark's hand. Mark, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're still muted, Mark. There you go.
Good evening, thank you. Mark Sawyer, 49 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. Living the dreams. I want to ask, is yesterday's election on the agenda tonight?
I think the town manager reports, we're going to be talking about it a little bit, Mark. Yep.
Okay. And I just want to take a little liberty with, I was hearing Joe about, I've been talking about the bike lanes and downtown and all that. It would be good to have it down there, but my debate about that is the town can only have so many DPW workers, and when bike lanes are being snow covered and it's going to be cleaned off, what's going to happen with the town after the town budget goes through the winter and all that? Will they have to keep money on the side for the bike path, or going to just say they'll be clean whenever they're going to be clean? I want to make sure that Joe knows that bike paths are not year round. And I just wanted to say, in case anybody really wanted to know, this house is all set. My dad's all set. Everything's strong and everything's going okay. Thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Moving on in our agenda, under old new business, discuss substitute motion for the building moratorium for special town meeting. At our last board meeting, we had voted and posted the warrant, and as part of that, there's a building moratorium that would restrict multifamily housing for more than 2 units. We had some input from residents and business owners about potentially looking at maybe changing that number a little bit. So we had put it on our agenda for this meeting to kind of discuss it. We've also gotten feedback that you know, there are residents that prefer to keep the moratorium as written and as presented. My personal point of view is that, you know, if we do decide to change that number, we need to think about what is actually possible to pass at town meeting, because I think if there is a number that we propose that's much higher than 2, it will get struck down before it even begins. So if it's something that we feel is important to consider, you know, my personal perspective is, you know, something along six units, so keeping it under 10 is probably my preference. But, you know, obviously, you know, we wanted to discuss that tonight, so.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wonder, is there any information, Michael, or do we have any idea? So the moratorium talks about infrastructure, all sorts of police, fire, streets, water, sewer, et cetera. So, going to your point about what I'm kind of wrestling with here is, you know, right now we have a moratorium that affects as, 2 units, right? And that's the standard thing. Three. So you could do a 3-unit, is that?
No, you can only do two.
So it's two, right. So if we're gonna increase that, I guess I would prefer to have some information, like to go to your point, like, what did you say, 6?
Mm-hmm.
So, which to me seems a reasonable number, but if we say 6, what's likely to happen? Do we have any idea? Like, do we have any estimates from, say, the planner, or the planning board, or the town planner is, well, we think we have X number of lots, and so we think over 2 years, if you allow 6, there's likely to be X number of units. I mean, I know it's not you can't know for sure, but it'd be good to know what we could potentially be dealing with. You know, so that's, I guess, where I'm at. Like, I'm willing to consider this, but I really don't have a good sense of the numbers, or I'd like to have more sense of what would strain our capacity, what would in effect be a problem, what would we be likely to see, and in that case, would that be a problem for us? Would be in effect undermining the moratorium, or is it just kind of a minor, you know, increase and it's not a problem?
Yeah, I think that question is probably better suited for the private sector and development professionals than it would be for government, because what it really comes down to is, well, there's a lot of things, but in terms of whether something gets built or not, the unit density has to be enough to where the developer can finance the project, and make money on the project. And that's something we're not going to have visibility into, and it's something that's going to vary by developers. So, you know, if you have somebody who's just starting out, you know, they might not have access to capital the way that somebody who's established would do that. So they might not be able to do 6 units. So I think it's probably better to, you know, get a sense, like I said, from really more the private sector as to what would be feasible for them.
Well, are you saying that, well, how would we do that? And we don't really have much time, assuming we want to do something, or we want to make a change for this town meeting. I mean, maybe could we do an analysis if we waited to, say, the spring town meeting to review the moratorium and decide if we wanted to make changes to it? I mean, is there something we can do to kind of get an idea about this? I guess that's what I'm asking.
So just so I understand, because Michael's talking about the private sector having the only ability to answer the question, what can I, you know, what is economically feasible for me to do on this property if I should do a project? You're asking about the impacts on our infrastructure.
Right.
All right, and whether we have the capacity to manage additions to our infrastructure. So right now, we have a sewer moratorium, correct?
Correct.
Right, and the reason we have that is to study the capacity of our sewer system.
Yeah, specifically what goes to Brackett Road.
Okay, so it's limited to one section of our system. But, you know, is that, if I understand your
that's one of the
question.
factors. I think that's one of the factors. I guess I was hoping that, I know this is a private sector thing, but I was hoping we could, or someone could make some kind of estimates. What are the developable parcels? What are we likely looking at? What if we approve 20 units? What are we looking at? What if we approve 6, what are we looking at? Just something, is that gonna be a problem for our infrastructure? I think, our seat of the pants thinking is that, it's probably not gonna be, 6 units is probably not gonna be. I guess I'd just like a little bit more information to base that number on. I guess that's where I'm coming from. And whether it's sewer capacity, which is a good, strong number, what's that likely to be,
Right. Yeah, I think, that would be great analysis. It would be a huge undertaking. And I think probably before we do that, we would need to see if anybody would be willing to build just 6 units.
That's a good question, yeah.
Sure. And again, that would be better suited for the private sector. And I think John Dudley sent us.
But we're the ones making the decision, not.
Right. Yeah, you would still be the ones making the decision,
Right,
but
so
you're
we
looking
need-
for information
Right.
and data.
Yeah.
So,
Randy, when Rob's done?
I'm done for now, so.
Yeah. So Michael mentioned John Dudley, he had sent us a communication. He had talked about infill projects. And I think that's kind of the concept that, created this discussion.
Right.
Is, how do we not discourage these kinds of infill potentials? We're engaged in this downtown project, and there certainly are parcels within downtown that would qualify for that kind of infill structure, and if just looking at a few of the local projects that have gone on recently, we talked about 21 Main Street, it's got 9 units, 128's got 13, 12 Pond Street has got 16 units, and when you look at the parcel card and you look at what happens to these parcels when, an old house at 21 Main Street is sold for $350,000, and now it's on the tax rolls for $2.5 million. It has ramifications on the revenue side, but it has ramifications also for what we're looking to do in downtown, in terms of making it a more engaging and productive space. So I don't know what the optimum number is for if we were to offer a modified article. I think to my mind, it's more than 6 though. And just looking at some of these other projects that have been built, and it's probably, I guess, taking an average of like 12 units would be my gut sense. Just looking at what things that have been built. So,
How would you address, so you're not concerned about, if we go to 12, you think realistically there's not gonna be 2 years worth of building that would be a problem? Is that?
Yeah, 2 years.
Isn't that the
building.
moratorium?
The moratorium is 2 years,
Yeah.
yeah. I personally, I think it would be, it just would be counterproductive for us not to be able to support these kinds of small-scale projects, particularly in, and I'll use next door here, the Kramer Building. And to me, that's a property that's ripe for redevelopment of some sort. And, and I'm not suggesting it's an eyesore, it's not productive the way it is now, but, it can be a lot more than what it currently is. And I would hate to see if somebody were to come and, let's say, whether it was Mr. Kramer himself or somebody come in to make an offer to purchase that and redevelop it. I think that might be a good thing, and I don't think it's in our community best interest to discourage that. Now, I think this is oriented, the way the reason why we're having this discussion is because of the large-scale stuff. And we all agree on that without question. It's the small-scale stuff. And what is that scale, though? That's the challenge. So, but my gut sense, it's got to be at least 12. I don't think it, John had suggested 25. I think that's too much. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yolanda?
I support what Steve said. I agree. When we did the moratorium, the idea was, and I said this the last meeting, it was almost a knee-jerk reaction to the bigger projects that we're seeing. And this was a way to handle that. And then, as we put it out there, what we thought would be a good idea, we then started hearing back, not just from John, I've talked to a couple of other people. And the idea that, to Steve's point, this infill, multi-use, not just housing, but most of these people are either looking to do small scale, 12 to 20, or I think about Pond Street, right? We encourage that to be multi-use so that there's retail on the bottom and housing on the top. Do we want 100 units? No, but certainly 12 Pond Street, 16 units. There's a couple of locations on Pond Street that would be great to support that. And Pond Street's about to be done. People want to get there. People want to support. I mean, this is why one of the things we had for Pond Street was mixed use, commercial on the bottom, residential within scale. And there's a couple of parcels there that the infill of smaller projects would be great for that parcels and for those multi-parcels. To me, 6 is too small. 25, again, I went back and talked to John. I think 25 is a bit much, but I think 20, 16, I think would be something that could allow people who have the parcels, who maybe they've been planning and designing, but they're waiting to have 126 done a little bit more, and by next spring, they want to start the construction, or they want to, start putting their permits in. So to keep it at 2 or less, I think to Steve's point, we're doing a disservice to potential growth in our community in regards to allowing some multi-use, the commercial at the bottom, some housing on the top in smaller scale projects that, again, would give back and start giving back to the community, but in a way that fits into our community a little bit better.
I'm going to rephrase that just a little bit, what you just said, because I agree completely. But I think what we're doing is a disservice to the investment that we're making in our downtown infrastructure.
And into our 126.
And the 126 infrastructure as well.
This isn't a permanent thing. This is a moratorium because we're lacking infrastructure. We actually haven't said that.
What infrastructure are we lacking?
Well, we need it. I think the way it's worded is so that we can evaluate what the impacts have been to our infrastructure. And I mean, I think there is a question. I mean, just doing some data work recently. I mean, school enrollment generally has gone up. Doesn't necessarily mean it's from apartments necessarily. It actually looks like it's more coming from condos. But like water, I was really surprised. Our water usage is actually less now than it was back in 2006.
Because
we
people
have
are
a
conserving
moratorium
more,
In that,
right?
yeah.
We've changed some of our sustainable habits within the community, so we're not using as much water.
So I mean, there's obviously hypotheses on each of these and why the numbers are the way they are. Sewer has gone up a little bit, but I mean, I do think. So really, I think you've got right now 3 solid data points, factual data points that you can use to maybe triangulate and find a number that would be okay with you. And that is 21 Main Street at 9 units, 128 Main Street, which I think is at 17.
Is it 17? I thought
And 6 in Pond Street, which is 16. So other than that, any number you pick is going to be arbitrary. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would make it attractive for somebody to build.
But
and
it's
do that
better
infill
than
development.
2.
I would, yes. I mean, it would certainly be more attractive at, 6 or 10.
And we do have the sewer moratorium for the next 6 months, right? So it's not, unless the plans are in, but if they say, okay, I know we have the sewer moratorium for 6 months, but I then don't have to wait another 1.5 years before doing a multi-apartment, multi-residential project, then they can plan that.
You could also expand the sewer moratorium for another 6 months if
could.
need be.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not, it's not cut and dry that, 6 months are up and then,
Right.
you Katie by the doors. That doesn't happen that way. With respect to the downtown development aspect of it, we took a long look at that because I had some folks call me about the Affordable Housing Trust and this moratorium and how, everyone's talking about affordability units. And rightfully so. And, not just for families, but also for for senior citizens. They're selling their homes and they like to stay here in town. So that was one of the concerns. And, when we were first looking at the property next door, and talking with the owner of that property, before the corner spot became, such a popular location, we were looking at a 32-unit structure. But it was, it would fit the decorum of the design of downtown. We're not looking at a 4-story unit or whatever. Multi-purpose, commercial on the bottom and senior housing on the top. That's still a possibility. And, that's a very strong possibility. And, the powers to be, they're still very interested in doing what they would like to do. But if we don't, provide a number, the number that we were looking at was like 18 units out of the other entity, and that's not utilizing the corner spot. So if people wanted to maintain that, then the 18 units or even to 14 units would be beneficial from where the old market basket case used to be to right down to Kramer's building to the hairstylist, that location, and Purple Ink for that matter. And there was a discussion about moving that property onto Cherry. There was a very lengthy discussion about this, and it almost came to pass. And unfortunately, the rug got pulled out from under us all when C&O Box Company was sold to us. We had a verbal agreement, and then it was sold to another entity. So that put that into
And that
into
parcel's been
agreement.
discussed and in play since 2013. I
Absolutely.
mean, since I've been sitting on the board, I know that the Affordable Housing Trust has been looking at trying to work with the owners, and there's been discussion. So it would be disappointing if they decided to move forward because things were in a right place, but we have a moratorium of only 2 units, and they want to do 18 or 16. So
That would
for
hold up
for
that
me, a
project.
comfortable number, and again, I checked with a couple people, but specifically John, would be 20.
So-
Just can I ask, what about the affordable housing factor? I think, could that be an exception to our moratorium legally? Is that,
What do you mean, Rob?
if
So like
something qualified as affordable housing, multifamily, whatever that criteria is, could that be an exception, or be in a class by itself, or would that be some legal issue with that?
So I would want to look into that a little bit more, but my thoughts, just based on my conversations with Lisa, is that it would make it less restrictive, and so it would probably be allowed as an amendment on the floor if you wanted to do that. But to what size, like?
Right, the size is still a question.
I'm just saying, you guys have raised the issue of affordable housing, which is a good issue. Maybe we could have a special, a classification. If it's affordable housing, you can do X units. If it's not, then you're under a different.
Well, I was looking at affordability with respect to seniors.
Yeah.
And not family multi affordable for families, but for senior citizens.
Well, it's all the same. I mean, it's
No,
multifamily. It's all multifamily.
Well, it is
what I'm saying.
multifamily, but
Yeah.
it's less of an impact as well.
Well, 40B could probably go around a
Yes.
moratorium, right?
Yep,
So
40B
it-
could. Yeah.
Absolutely it could.
So, if there was that situation. it
That's
could-
why safe harbor's so important.
Yep.
so,
Yeah, that's a good point that Rob raises. So if we conditioned a modified motion to include, we'd have a number, pick a number, but 25% of the units needed to be affordable.
But what does that mean? That you could build 200 units?
No, still
we'd have a
keep
number. We'd
still
have
keep
to
the
have a
cap
number.
of 16 or 20. But if you want to build that many, 25% of those 20 or 16, whatever we pick, would have to be affordable
Oh,
units.
affordable.
Interesting.
Just also, just to keep in mind, we're going to be beginning this comprehensive plan process.
Mhm.
So if we make that number too high and we say that, you know, and, you know, it's kind of like we need to plan, you know, we've heard that time and time again. We need to, you know, figure out a plan for downtown and figure out a plan for 126. And a moratorium would at least give us that flexibility to be able to do that. If we make that number too high and then the development keeps coming and coming and coming, it defeats the purpose of a moratorium, which is really to be able to do this comprehensive plan process.
I look at it, we've been talking about the comprehensive plan for forever, right? So part of why we're looking to do the moratorium is because of the number of apartments that are coming in, the big ones that are coming in, and how can we take a step back and look, right? And it was said, okay, well, if we put a moratorium in, then we can take it, you know, see how it's affecting. Yes, I see the moratorium and the comprehensive plan going hand in hand to some extent, but I also think that by giving a number that's not just 2, there are people who can still be moving things forward. Do we really want to stop everything for 2 years? Do we really want to stop? You know, someone has an opportunity. It's one of those things. It's like if someone has an opportunity to do something and then they can't because, well, you can only do 2 units. Well, one of 2 things will happen. Either one, they'll take that opportunity and go someplace else, or they'll wait. But if it's someone who has already done a lot in town and is a big supporter of town, and we want to keep them, right? If there are developers who we know, who we have worked with as a town, and they want to continue to do things in our town, why would we tie their hands completely? Even if it's only for 2 years, right? Because then that can be extended, right? Because right now, if you're looking at our comprehensive plan process, that's not going to be done until 2025.
Right.
That's longer than this moratorium. So would we then extend the moratorium, and what would that do? So
Well-
I really think we need to have a number. From what I've heard from a few different people, 20 is comfortable, but I don't know if anyone else is comfortable with that.
Can I ask a procedural question about this? So, say we vote on something tonight, like this substitute motion, we pick a number or criteria, tomorrow's the planning board hearing on this. Is someone from here going to go there and talk to them about our motion? Is that going to be discussed at the hearing?
Yeah, so I'll be doing a presentation tomorrow just with some of this data that I've been collecting and some, you know, talking points about the moratorium. And certainly if the board chooses to decide to put forward an amendment at town meeting, I would mention that, the no.
And do we have something drafted just without a number already from Lisa, or are we waiting for Lisa until we have our number? Have you reached out to Lisa to say, can you help us draft an amendment if we change from if we say no multifamily and we now want to say less than 20 units or less than 16 units?
Oh, yeah, she could draft that. You mean before town
Okay, so
meeting?
you
and
haven't
have it?
talked to her about it yet?
I've talked to her about the legality of it.
Okay, so it's something we can do?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So, it sounds like we're all supportive of something higher than 2. So, you know, if we can come to consensus on it, that, you know. So Yolanda, your number is 20?
Yes. Only because I've talked to a couple people and that's something that they feel that would make sense. And now, would they do 20? I don't know. It depends on the parcel and it depends on what they're doing. You know, I think about 128 Main, that's, I think you said 16 or 17. 10, 12 Pond is 16 units.
Yeah, but, you know, you look at 12 Pond though, and sort of not just the number of units, but the impact to the neighborhood and how much that was. I mean, that was a big project. It was a big project. It took a lot of time in front of planning board.
Yeah.
It took a lot of energy from a lot of folks, and it's still
Still
ongoing.
is.
Yeah.
Still is, right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I think that, you know, when we talk about units are a part of it, but it's you know, it's not.
128 took quite a bit of energy.
Yeah, 128
from,
Main.
from staff and
Yeah.
from, you know, just the process. So,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know, Michael, that went on for a couple of years, I believe.
128,
128
the
Main Street.
21
Yeah.
Main went
Oh, yeah.
on for a
Design.
I
while.
think 21 went fairly smooth and quickly, but
No, there was a
No, it took-
lawsuit.
was there?
Yeah,
there
Okay,
was a
I
lot.
forgot about
Lawsuit.
that. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
these things can be tied up for a couple of years in the planning process. So I think to add on, you know, to delete those 2 years for these smaller scale projects, I think is just the wrong way to approach this. For me, 20 is too much. I'm thinking just based on some of these numbers that have been built already, you know, no more than, you know, 16.
You were at 12 before.
I know, but I'm just looking at,
Mm.
you know, at some of these other figures, but, you know, that would be my maximum.
So I think, as I think, Brandy, you alluded to earlier, we do have to be cognizant of the fact that, we proposed this moratorium, and we basically said 2 units is what we started with, and now we're thinking about making exceptions, but I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, we were talking about a moratorium to stop multifamily development until we, in effect, get our act together. And so I think we need to be careful about making exceptions to that. Having said that, you know, I think I'm willing to go with a number like Brandy talked about, 6, maybe 12. I would like to see that affordable housing requirement in there if that's something that we think is reasonable or doable. And, you know, I guess I'd go with a 12 unit. I think the problem I'm still having is we don't have a lot of data. We don't know what the effect will be. I think we're thinking it'll be a modest amount of building, right? So hopefully we're not going to be
Yeah, we can't-
unpleasantly
We
surprised.
can't speculate on what's
Well, it's
going
not
to happen.
speculation though, but you do have to make, you know, take reasonable action based on what you think is likely to happen. So I think we're thinking, if we allow 12, we're not going to end up with 3,000 housing units. We're going to end up with
Course
like
not.
40, you know.
If
That's what I
that,
think we're
right?
hoping, right.
So I can go along with 12.
Yeah, okay. And with the affordable,
Yeah, I think that's
All right.
an important condition. If it's legal, we should include that.
So
That
like a
would be- that would
25%,
be-
so it's essentially inclusionary zoning?
Essentially
That's
inclusionary zoning.
exactly,
yes.
thank you. I was just gonna make that point, that it is inclusionary zoning, and that's,
So,
you're not gonna hear a negative from me on that aspect of it, so.
and, you know, I also want to point out, I know there's concern about increasing the affordable units, the stock that we have, but, you know, please remember that there are 3 projects in front of the planning board. One has been approved, the other 2, you know, not sure if they're going to be approved, but if they are approved, I mean, it's not like building is going to stop in 2
Right.
years. I mean, those things would be built, you would be adding, you know, a significant amount significant is,
I'm
Depends
gonna
on-
interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Just remember, the individuals that are building didn't allow for additional affordable units. Even though we requested and asked them nicely, would they entertain raising their units or their affordability to 15 or even to 20? And the answer was, you could have heard a pin drop in the room. No, they didn't want to do that. So,
well, that was one.
well, I understand that, but that particular project just got passed, if I'm not mistaken. So,
That's correct.
okay, again, let's be neighborly, right? Let's work together with the town. That doesn't seem to be happening. So that's why, the Affordability Act component is, for me, is very, very instrumental and is something that needs to be put into this amendment as part of the.
all right. So Joe, would you accept 12 units? Would you go
I'd
with-
accept 14.
See, I
And then-
wouldn't
and-
go as high as 14. I don't think a 14 unit would pass town meeting.
You think 12 would?
I'm even thinking 12 might not, to be honest.
Okay.
If we have both on the floor of town meeting, basically a complete cease and desist of multifamily building, and then we're making a case for a number.
Small affordability projects.
Small affordability projects.
So what's your number?
I would support 12.
Okay.
I would support 12.
And the only reason why I was saying 14 is that, in my mind, knowing the project that was going across or was proposed, prior to taking that loop around 6 Cherry, it was 14. That was the only reason why. So if you go to 12, you're gonna lose 2 units, but that's okay with me. That's fine.
I mean, I like the idea of something that's in between 21 Main and 128 Main, because I think that that's like a good size.
Yeah.
But Michael is right. I mean, ultimately, what's economically feasible
Right.
is not in our
Right.
domain.
Right.
You know,
You know, a
whoever the
project of
builder,
6.
the builder will, whoever the property
Not
owner is,
worth
will
it.
determine that.
Not worth their effort.
So,
No.
Yeah, so I think what you want to think about is, like I said, you're you know, really kind of picking an arbitrary number. And I think what you have to weigh is, okay, is that really going to effectuate some of that infill design or infill development that you're talking about? You have to weigh that against the adverse effects on what we're trying to accomplish with this moratorium and its ability to pass town meeting.
but what we're trying to accomplish is to manage the big scale stuff, is what we're trying to manage. And I don't think we necessarily, I know I didn't consider the small scale stuff. And I think there's, you know, I don't know if you would call it discriminatory, but that's almost, you know, while we're having this moratorium, as you just pointed out, we're going to be building, you know, potentially 3 large complexes, yet we're gonna deny somebody, a property owner, to build a smaller project during this period of time, and it sounds, I don't know,
Productive.
counterintuitive in a sense.
Well, and it's counter to some of the development we've wanted to see, right? We've wanted to see the mixed use, 10 to 20 units, where, you know, it's not a big parking area in the back, it's almost neighborly, right? Like, you know, I think about, for me, some of the stuff for downtown projects, I look at a Natick, right? Now, granted, they've been a little bit more established, but they have some they have retail on the bottom and they have apartments at the top. To make that work, 6 units, it's probably not worth it to the developer. I mean, 6 units is nothing if they're gonna build that.
Well, if we
And
go
even
to,
12, I think. I mean, 16, I think I would be able to
the
support
other
that,
thing
but
is
it's
we
much
got-
smaller.
I mean, if we really think we need to change things from what we do tonight, we have town meeting in like 5 months, 6 months.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, so, I mean, all
Gotta
right,
prepare
I'll
for
just,
the
I'll
other
make a motion for 12 units with a 25% affordability and see if we're ready to go with that.
So this is, your motion is to
Allow up to,
provide a substitute motion at town meeting floor, correct?
yes. For up to, allow up to 12 units with 25% affordability requirement.
At the 80% level, 80% of the,
What,
I mean, that's the standard, but we've
Okay.
had success with lower amounts.
yeah, let's not, I mean, I don't
Just
think we
say
want
make
to
it
push it
affordable,
too hard.
but-
Yeah, I think 80% is fine.
Well, 80% is the maximum it could be to be affordable.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Unless other people feel strongly, I don't,
You know,
So that's my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I don't think it's enough.
All right, so that passes 4-1.
And if that gets defeated on town meeting floor, is there another way we could put an additional amendment to?
Well, someone could amend, so you have the you have what's in the booklet,
Correct.
right? And then we're gonna put forward this amendment for 12 units. Someone could put forward an amendment for 20 units,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's
Right.
possible.
That
Yeah,
that
we-
is
we-
possible.
Yeah.
This is just our
And
recommendation.
if there are people out there who want to, you know, raise that limit, well, they need to show up
They need to be at the planning board meeting tomorrow, and they need to come to town meeting on the
That's right.
16th.
I mean, I just don't think
Support it,
there's that
you
many
know.
Yeah.
supporting it, would support that number. But
Yep. Okay, good discussion.
So, just as a curiosity, who will be making the substitute motion
You mean a town meeting?
at town meeting? Because one of us will have to do it, right?
Well, I
Yeah.
guess I'm willing to do it. but,
Any one of us can, you
Yeah.
know.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
okay, sounds good.
Can I wear a mask when I'm doing it?
the helmet.
You
Paper
can't
bag over
support
your
what
head.
you just voted for, Rob?
I'm-
Really?
I'm kidding,
Okay.
but not really.
All right, let's move on in our agenda. Discuss the comprehensive plan timeline approved by the planning board to be presented at special town meeting. You guys all saw the,
Yeah, it looks good.
the timeline. I know Anna, had worked on that with Kate and, turned that around pretty quickly, because I think there was like 1 day between when we
Yeah.
met with them at our last meeting and then their next, yeah, so,
We're not, this is require a vote.
No.
yeah, so
Can
it's
excuse myself.
just, it was just more or less, does anyone else have any comments, questions, anything?
Michael, I responded to you and to Peter. I think if we want to show it at town meeting, can we get it in a calendar form? Is that possible?
Yeah, we could do that by
And if-
town meeting.
okay.
I think.
Okay, because if not, I can do that. The other discussion I know, just regarding town meeting, is have we checked with Adam if we can do a little slideshow regarding the comprehensive plan?
We're working on Adam.
We're working on Adam.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question, so who's gonna be likely presenting that? Is this our, well, it's just a budget
Part of
item,
the, it's a
right?
budget item.
Yeah, so.
It's part of the
something to
free,
think
I mean,
about.
it's
Yeah.
part of a bundle of things. I mean,
I mean, I'm
so we
thinking
can-
like something real high-level overview,
Yeah.
because it, basically a slide or two on what the comprehensive plan is, a slide on the timeline,
Right.
and it's a joint thing between us and the planning board.
purpose for the money.
Yep.
And the purpose for
I
the
know
purpose
that
for the money.
Anna and Kate have been working on it, because I've been very vocal about the project and doing it. They've asked, am I gonna be the select board member? I said, I don't know. So, I'm willing to work with them as the select board member for now, until we decide
I
who's
guess that
gonna
was
be on
my
it.
question, if the planning board was gonna present it, or if somebody goes, or you guys do it together, or whatever. You're not gonna have a lot of time, I would
No, it's gonna
imagine.
be
2
one or two
minutes.
slides,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you need to do a slide. I mean,
Right.
You could probably just
I mean,
describe
the
it.
only thing I think it would be good is to let people know what we're looking for a timeline.
Right, and have that.
And that visual of, this is where we're at, and this is this is when we're planning
Then I
on
would
doing
think
stuff.
we'd have a pile when you come in the door of this, just for people to
Well,
grab
it'd
and
be part
look
of the
at.
warrant.
Well, not necessarily, unless we do a
No,
separate
it'd be
printing.
part of the package, right? We could have it.
So like the presentation wouldn't be part of the.
Oh,
Right.
no.
That's what I'm saying.
But
so
we
you
could
just
have we
it
could have
at the
something
door.
sitting there if people wanted
Yeah,
to grab
that's what I
it.
mean.
For the
We could have a
timeline
handout
itself,
regarding
right,
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And we
that'd be good.
could have a
Yeah,
slide up
Adam
there,
would do that.
yeah,
Yeah, great.
okay.
Okay.
There were a lot more visual learners than there are auditory.
That's what I said when I looked at that written out
Yeah.
timeline. I'm like,
Absolutely.
can I see it?
Yep.
So. Okay.
We still on the timeline?
Yeah, we're almost done though.
Yep, so, so the next steps is to check with Adam to see if we have, permission to do a couple minutes at town meeting. And what that time limit would look like, just because I think that's important to,
3 minutes if he allows it.
3 minutes, okay, all right.
So it would be show the timeline and a brief synopsis of how we're gonna move this forward.
I mean, I think you could have just one general description of what a comprehensive plan is, and then the timeline.
Yeah.
And it's good for the 250,
Mhm.
right? Because people are gonna ask that question no matter what, so might as well give it to them verbally.
Mm.
Okay, so we'll put together a couple slides, possibly.
Like
We'll
I
wait
said,
to
I
hear
believe
from you.
Anna and Kate have started working on it already, so we just need to figure out how much time we have and what it can be.
All right, sounds good. I know Kate is, I see Kate
It's on,
on,
so-
on Zoom tonight. Kate, is there anything that you wanted to add? If you're there?
She might be listening.
She's probably off in the
Okay.
kitchen.
All right. Okay then. All right, so I think we're good to go on that.
Great.
Moving on our agenda, update on 2023 Boston Marathon. Do we have I know Susan's,
Susan, you want to update the board on that?
Sure. So on the 1st, we did a drawing. Michael had the honors. He drew the names. And today, everybody has been either notified that they got a spot or they were put on the wait list. Today, we did have somebody drop out, so I notified the first person on the wait list. And I'm just waiting to hear back. We have probably 4 people left that have to sign their agreements.
How many people put in for numbers and how many?
39 for 12 spots.
Wow.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's terrific. Yeah,
That is awesome.
yeah. Wow. That's great.
that is amazing. So, all right, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Brandy,
And-
before we jump forward, I
Yep.
just wanted to make note, since we're on that subject, Rob and I are meeting next Thursday for the subcommittee for the grants, so we'll have it ready for a recommendation for our first December meeting.
Okay, we're
We're
planning to
meeting the
meet in
last
the end
week
Or
of.
the last,
The last
Yeah,
week of
the-
November.
okay, so we'll have it ready for that meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Awesome, thank you. And thank you guys for signing up for another cycle.
Oh, yeah.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments? We're good? All right. Discuss the MBTA emergency access gate. We had received an email from a resident with concerns about safety on that gate. Do we want to talk about, like, what because I know Chief Roby had been out there and had seen, there was like a pin missing on the gate, and the pin has been replaced, and the gate is closed. The access road is it's really strictly for emergency use only and for the MBTA, right?
Well, that's correct. And Joel actually made the point earlier today in citizen comment. I mean, it is not designed to be a roadway. If that was the case, it would have guardrails, because you got a steep drop off and everything. It was meant to be emergency access only. Over the course, really the pandemic, Keolis got into the habit of leaving that open, so it started to become used as a cut through, a normal cut through. In terms of us taking it over, it's not our property, so we can't necessarily do that. What Keolis does is they lock it. Our public safety officials have the key to be able to get through if they need to. So I think, what we could do is if you're concerned about is it being open all the time, we could probably send something to Keolis, just letting them know that,
Yeah.
or the
Probably,
MBTA, and let
yeah.
them know that.
because it has been open, so clearly they have opened it and either not locked it or not repaired it. And
Probably the latter. No one
so,
knows.
but reading Mrs. Broder's email, she talks about calling Keolis and getting a complaint number and so on. So again, it sounds like one of those bureaucratic quagmires that are easy to get lost in. So I think something from the town manager and the select board, I think would be good communication.
With who? Mrs. Broder?
With Keolis.
Oh, no, with
Keolis.
Keolis.
Keolis,
Keolis
okay.
MBTA.
Because one of the,
Keolis and the MBTA. thank
Yeah.
you.
one of the concerns that Mrs. Broder brought up was the fact about the speed aspect of it.
Yeah.
In her email. The Traffic Study Committee responded to her email with respect to that. The people that have been utilizing that access road, they have to slow down to get to that location. So if there's any speed coming down High Street Extension, it's gonna be the new development that's up there. So the only people that go up there are the folks that live there. And we very nicely explained that to her, that, we'd be more than happy to put a traffic study up there, but you're gonna see that 90% of the folks that are speeding on that particular area up there are the residents that live there themselves. And that's
Dead end,
usually
right?
the case. That's been the case on Olive Street, it's been the case on Elliott Street to some extent, though you have travelers coming in from Holliston. I said, but the folks that are using that shortcut, they have to slow down, and if they don't, they're gonna go right into the to the berm, and there is and into the tree area there. I know that at one point when that was open, it was open when the downtown area was being, being worked on, and it was a cut-through, and it made it a
That's
little
been a
bit
couple
easier.
years, so.
Right, well, you're right, but at the same token, it's been somewhat of a lifesaver to some of the folks down there that are looking at another way to get to 135, instead of having to go through all the detours and all the bumps and stuff like that with respect to that. So that could be one of the reasons why it was left open.
But to get to 135, you can go up over High Street and Cross Street.
You can,
I
but
mean,
that's
there's other
way.
ways to go.
Right,
Granted, it's
right.
longer,
It's
but.
It's a longer stretch, that's why, the shortest point, the shortest line is, is a direct line, so, type of deal, so, but yeah, no different than people that wanna park close to where they wanna go to, they don't wanna walk, so they wanna get as close as they can to where they wanna park and utilize, so, you're between a rock and a hard place, but Mrs. Broder was made aware that, we'd be happy to put, study up there to see what the traffic flow is and the average speed up there. But because of that gate being open is not the reason why people are speeding up and down that road.
Right.
But
Just to,
in the essence to her email, that's we needed to respond
Right.
to that.
yeah, and I think we just assure that it's gonna be closed. I'd ask this to be put on the agenda, just so we make sure we're clear that that gate should be closed, right? I think we're all agreed on that. And that we have one of the things I think I will ask, I'll go to the advisory board and get a Keola's name, a local person, and which isn't to say that you shouldn't do whatever you're gonna do, but at least we should have somebody we can call, that isn't their general complaint line. But, I think there's a kind of communication aspect to this. That is, it's not our property. We're not the ones who lock and unlock it, but we should be monitoring to make sure that they do keep it closed. And if we get complaints, that we have a clear message to people that, we'll communicate to Keolis that they are not doing this properly, or we'll bring it up to them. Because I think it is our policy that it should be closed. And as long as that's the policy, we should be consistent about it. Like she said, the police said it's Keolis's business. They really should say, the message should be something like, we'll follow up and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Or this is the policy, that it stays largely closed, something like that. I think also it's probably a good idea, since a number of people have been using it, that maybe you put out in your newsletter that, repeat the policy. It's supposed to be closed. It's gonna be closed. Don't expect to cut through.
Expect to be, right.
So,
And the only time they open it, especially now during the wintertime, is when we have snowstorms, so that they can clear the
you
emergency
could say,
path.
you might luck out, it might be open, but don't,
Yeah.
Count
don't
on
say
it.
that.
We should put a camera there that people could tune into and they could look.
When I took the train from that side, you did have to be careful, because people come buzzing down that ramp, and they don't expect anybody to be there. So I had a few times when it was like all of a sudden somebody comes barreling through.
Those cyclists that are coming down.
It's the cyclists too. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get a Keolis name and.
Well, I'll talk to,
Okay.
and then, I'm
And then
sure
we-
you guys have a contact, I'm sure Doug knows somebody, right?
Yeah, I would think that someone
Yeah.
has a name for Keolis.
Yeah,
So-
but I'll just do I'll do a follow-up as well. Yeah, I'll get an email Brian, who's the local guy we need to talk to here? Jeez.
So Michael, we can, the town can put out some communication to, official communication of what we,
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll write something to Keolis and the
Okay.
MBTA, and we'll put some notification out
Great.
too.
okay,
Thanks.
great, thank you. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Moving on to priority project update. Michael?
Yeah, so I'll start off with downtown. So we have a couple pretty big announcements that I want to share tonight, and we'll be publicizing over the next week. But November 16th, we are going to be paving essentially all of Main Street up to the intersection with Front Street, and then all of Front Street as well. And we're going to try to do that in one day. So,
Try to avoid it.
well, the next part of this announcement is it will essentially be downtown will essentially be shut down that day. So,
Wow.
So it's a six.
Have we notified of the businesses that are downtown about that?
Beth has been working with the businesses because we're trying to figure out if there's like certain sections. So Front Street, for example, they're planning on doing in the morning. You know, how long does it have to sit before
Can drive on
they
it.
can drive on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's town meeting day as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, like, has there been communication with
Yes.
schools?
Be able
Yes.
to get
Okay.
to town meeting.
Okay, so they're aware of it and school aware, so they'll
Yeah.
have an alternative,
So we reached out to Tamara at the schools,
Yep.
who manages the buses, and then we'll also reach out to Dave Muri, you know, the SRO.
you wanna let some of the crossing guys know what's going on that day.
Okay.
Well, at least for the Mendez, right?
Especially for the.
I don't know. So, yeah, with the detour, I mean, we will have detour plans. We'll put those out along with the notification as well.
So that's a week from today. You're planning on paving Main Street and Front Street and basically shutting it down for the day.
Correct.
Okay.
Town meeting day.
Town meeting day.
Busy day.
It is a busy day. Then it's going to be a busy night the next night, because today we got a request for night work. Pine Ridge, who are doing the traffic signals, they've requested to be able to work at night on Thursday, essentially from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Where?
So it's the intersection of Front Street and Main Street. What they're having to do is, so they're going to disconnect the existing signals, and then it's going to take, so what happens, those signals are connected to the railroad signals. So they'll disconnect it, they'll put the new signals up, and then connect those
Back
as
to the
well.
railroad.
So they want to do it at a time when there's not much train activity or traffic as well.
So we have to approve that.
Yes.
That makes
Does that
sense.
affect the paving aspect of it? Will they be digging,
No, so remember, I said paving Main Street up to the intersection with Front Street.
Front Street? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it shouldn't
okay.
have anything to do with the paving. They've already put the posts in and
Okay.
the mast arms
The
and stuff like
conduits
that.
are already down, under all the underneath stuff that needs to get done is done.
So, so the railroad work has been completed?
No,
No.
Oh, okay.
this is before the railroad.
No, I understand that. When will that work be done?
So they are going to plan on working on the tracks after Thanksgiving, or
Okay.
going underneath the tracks. after
Underneath,
Thanksgiving.
okay.
Yeah, and probably from now until then, they might be out there doing some test pits, 2 or
Yep.
3 test pits, but that shouldn't be too obstructive.
Okay.
You anticipate any major impacts on those businesses near the tracks when they start that work, jacking underneath?
I don't think those businesses will need to be closed. I think, the goal is to at least keep one lane open,
Okay,
at least one lane open.
good.
And there's trees going in downtown, I saw those.
Yeah, trees are still being installed. Obviously they're doing more of the granite and concrete work that's happening, doing a lot of the banding as
Yeah.
well.
What are they doing with, as you go down Front Street towards Fountain, along the side of Front Street as you get beyond the farmer's market area? And, right now it's been a staging area for all kinds of materials. Is that going to be essentially left the way it is right now?
It's the
Is
track
there any
side.
kind of cleanup going to be done there? I mean, I recognize it's still staging area at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do some type of cleanup and like loam and seed it if we wanted to.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Do we need to approve the night work? We do. Okay.
Yep.
I move that we approve the night work for the evening of November 17th from 10 PM to 4 PM for the intersection of Main and Front,
4 a.m.
For you.
4 AM, yes,
I'll
10 PM to 4 AM.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes 5-0.
So that's, okay, so that's downtown. It'll be really nice when it gets paved, so.
Yeah, it looks like.
It'll be great.
It'll be great. Actually, the road's smoother now than it, just milled than it was a month ago.
They'll be putting partial lines in, temporary lines in, so people will have a distinction as to what side they need to be on.
Yeah, I think they're gonna actually do the full paint.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
But that's not the final base coat, is it?
No, that's gonna be the final
Oh,
coat.
that's gonna be the final coat.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a really good job in the '80s when they redid it. That asphalt's 9 inches.
Okay.
Like, it's pretty solid.
That
So.
Benny work.
So we
Yeah,
don't have
it was
to, so we
big.
don't have to do full depth reconstruction, they're able to just do partial. Nice.
Yeah, mill and
Good.
overlay.
Thanks, Ben.
Good.
Yeah, credit to him for sure. Jen, do you want to talk about your favorite project, the public safety building?
Sure. So I don't think there's much of an update since the last time we all met. We are still waiting for the trolleys and the tracks for the apparatus bay. Moving, our general contractor is still on site doing all punch list items, and our architect's going back and doing a back punch, so basically looking at what is still outstanding. And we're working with police and fire to sort of outline a move-in date, which is likely, more at the end of the month, given where we are in the holiday season, trying to, before we disrupt both departments. Some of the schedules for dispatchers will change, and so trying to give them a little bit of lead time before we move in. And working with the state to get a new date. So it's really just sort of coordinating all the moving parts, and then we're sitting and waiting for the doors, the tracks and trolleys. The committee met, and we are sort of putting as much pressure as we possibly can on the contractor to try to so the relationship is really with the manufacturer, and so we're trying to work with our general contractor to put as much pressure as they possibly can on the manufacturers to get the pieces that we're waiting for the doors. So hopefully next time I'll have a better update of more progress that's happened.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
So what do we think about the big, the big ceremony and all that
I knew where you're going.
in my speech? Oh, no, I get it. Do we have kind of thinking about a date?
We're thinking about the program. We're not thinking about a date until, we
Okay,
have
until we're
a
ready to go.
transition into the building
Yeah.
and people are
Right.
settled and,
We want them
it's a little
comfortable first,
premature to,
right.
No,
so it may have to be, at this point, could be next year.
January or February.
Yeah, so, which is not, it is what it is. So just work on your speech and, be prepared.
Take notes.
Well, yeah, do I have to have you talking at that too? Okay.
No, you don't.
I'm only kidding.
Well, everybody has plenty of time to
Yeah,
prepare
your
their
subject
remarks.
is the history of clock design.
That's right. And my issues with the clock
It still
design.
comes up.
He brought it up.
I just brought it
to
up.
this
I
evening.
complained in private to my inside source, and he poo-pooed the whole thing.
Mendez School, we don't have too much of an update on that.
Yeah, we
haven't
have
had
a meeting next week.
Yeah,
I know things are moving forward.
Looks great,
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, a lot of stuff going on. Valentine project, so you've seen that they, put the fence around there. They should start working today, or not, at some point this week. You should see the machinery starting to get staged and things like that.
You'll keep us posted on when they're doing stuff, because I really want to get footage of what they do.
Yeah, you didn't want to see the fence go in, right?
No, I do
Okay.
need to see the fence go in, that's okay.
Okay. So Doug and I went there last week and we looked at some of the things that we could save potentially.
Okay.
So Susan is getting, a box, like a Connex box, to put some of the stall doors in there. There's some other doors also that we want to try to keep.
There's a pulley or something that's hanging down that I think needs to be kept, and,
Oh, the rope and everything?
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Okay,
It's almost over the basketball hoop. To the right of it.
okay. Make a note of
Any
that.
of the old metal stuff that can be kept should be kept,
Oh, yeah.
the hinges and.
It'll look nice.
That's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. And then Warren District, really nothing to, things seem to be progressing with
The house, 433.
with Paul. There was a question as to what kind of material he was using on his siding. It is wood siding.
Mhm.
So it's moving along.
Just a quick question, when you said, on the Warren District, anything about the bond and the restoration and the reconstruction of the bond?
We're trying to get the 750,000. That was part of the one of the ARPA earmarks for us. So we're going through that process.
So we're waiting to do anything until we actually have that money in hand. That makes sense.
Okay. And the holdup is what? What is the tie-up on?
State bureaucracy.
Gotcha. Say no more.
So
Thank you.
no worries. Okay, so that's what I have for a priority project update.
Okay, town manager reports.
Yep. Putting the pressure on me.
No pressure, no pressure.
Make a motion not to go over 9 o'clock.
So first, want to talk a little bit about Election Day and the election process. A big thanks to Cindy and Christopher and Jean and the rest of our poll workers. We had a lot more people vote on Election Day than we had thought was going to, pleasantly surprised. Actually, we ended up having almost 60.2% turnout.
Wow.
Overall.
Wow.
Yeah,
Terrific.
for a non-presidential.
And that's mail-in too?
So that's mail-in. So the total of early voting, consisting of the mail-in and early voting in person was 4,500. And there were about 757 in-person early voting, and then 3,758 mail-in.
Wow.
And that's
Wow.
out of 4,300 that we had sent out. So that was a pretty good return
That
rate.
is good,
Wow.
yeah. It was
Then
busy.
how many on election day?
I'm sorry?
How many voters on election day?
It would be, I would have to do the math. So it'd be 7370 minus 4515, so we're talking about
Yeah,
3,000,
yeah,
a little over
It was
3,000.
pretty steady all day.
it was. I went there about, I think it was about 8 o'clock, and it was busy, it was steady.
Yeah,
It stayed that way all day.
Good.
Get there at 11 and there's still a line going through, which was nice.
so it was pretty, I think a lot of the contested races were pretty, in Ashland, the vote counts were indicative of the statewide counts, but, it was an interesting. Question 1 passed here by, a decent margin. Question 2 passed very handily. Question 3 voted no, just by a handful.
That was
Oh, really?
alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
excuse me.
bless you.
Yeah.
And question 4 passed by a healthy margin too. So, interesting.
Yeah,
I think the ballot questions are really what brought people
that
out.
drove.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, so
They did a really good job.
They did. It
Yeah.
was really kind of seamless.
Yeah, and congratulations to our new
Yes.
governor and lieutenant governor
Yep.
Ate history.
and attorney general
I was gonna say, women at the
And-
top.
and auditor.
Women at the top.
and auditor and treasurer.
Treasurer.
It's just Bill Galvin standing by.
Yes, Bill Galvin and,
The only man
and
left
Bill was the
standing.
only. Bill Galvin is the only male in statewide
Constitutional
elected
office,
office.
yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Wow.
And then with the legislature, Ron Mariano's the only, well, not the only, but he's the top.
Yeah, top of the chamber.
Of his chamber,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it was good. It was encouraging. Thanks for everybody who came out to vote as well. So our holiday program, we still have 12 or 15 more kids that we need to find adopters for. So, if anybody's interested in that, they can reach out to
Human services.
the human services staff. Our new issue of Ashland Access, which is our newsletter, will be going out soon. Brandy put in, something for the select board. So, we're looking forward to getting that published, and thank you to Ashley and Beth for putting that together. So this time, we're not going to be including it in local town pages. It's just going to be digitally. So, the next one we will probably include in local town pages as well. trying to do 2 and 2.
Is it possible to have a printed copy, like, available at the library and, like, at the community center, just so people can see it, so?
Absolutely.
Because I know, I think Beth had said that it was gonna, that both the library and the community center would print it if people wanted it, but they need to be able to see that it's, like, available too.
Mhm.
So if there could be a printed copy, I think that would be great.
Okay, absolutely. Let's see, so just to give you an update on the RFI for the public safety buildings. So we've had 10-ish people pull it, yeah, I mean, like real,
Yeah, it's hard to discern,
legitimate.
so, yeah, you normally get like people who just pull it, like, you know, they just collect anything.
For
procurement.
information, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think probably 10, 11
10 actual
interested
Viable.
party,
Yeah.
potentially interested parties.
Couple breweries, so,
Okay.
it's interesting. And then the walkthrough is
Tomorrow at
yeah.
11, so we'll be meeting outside here, and we'll walk down, just because we weren't totally clear about any detours that might be happening downtown. So we'll walk them down, sort of explain the streetscape, and then let them see the buildings.
And,
Yeah, I
we
think
may-
that's a
yeah.
great process,
Yeah.
you know, for determining what's actually viable.
yeah.
Yeah, and Beth and I were talking, I'm sorry. Beth and I were talking today, we will likely do a second walkthrough. So we had a couple of people reach out earlier this week that just became interested or just became aware of it. And so we just want to make sure that we're, you know, sort of having an opportunity to show it to anybody who's interested. And it's not due until December 6th. So we're probably looking at maybe the Monday leading into Thanksgiving week. So hopefully we can squeeze it in then.
Can't you tell how much Jen loves procurement? I mean,
This one's
loves
like,
it.
yeah,
So-
this one's low pressure procurement.
kind of
so-
a
Yeah.
fun-
So you
sounds a
would
little
be,
fun, too.
you'd correspondingly extend the,
No, we'll keep it at December 6th. So people who have just sort of found the RFI but maybe can't make it tomorrow,
Yeah.
we'll do another walkthrough, but they can still start to generate their ideas. They just wouldn't have to put their eyes on the property, but we still keep it for, because
Okay.
they would still have a week and a half really. And that's
Yeah.
why if we do it the first, like, you know, give them that Monday, they'll still have, I mean, it's a holiday, but they'll still have 10 days to put together something. Yeah.
And there is visible, there are videos online where they can, if they can't make it to the walkthrough, to go
Mhm.
see the building, so.
Right.
Hopefully they have advance notice that people will be coming through the building,
Of course.
unless there are people down back.
Well, they will,
Hmm.
they won't go there then.
Yeah.
And the last thing I have is just, want to just recap a little bit with the warrant, the town meeting warrant. So FinCom has met and provided their recommendations. Their one for Article 7 is pretty interesting. We've had a couple of good discussions about the moratorium.
Oh, the moratorium.
Interestingly enough, I don't know if the Sustainability Committee has done this time, but I'd suggest they wanted to be more involved in some of the article warrant process, so I suggested, you know, they could take a position on each of the warrant articles as Sustainability Committee members and, you know, get up and report that.
Right.
So they might try to do that. And then just speakers, so we'll have you'll do the comprehensive plan piece of free cash. Helen for the Historical Commission will do the bylaw. CPC, Aaron will do that. I can just do the rest if you want me to. So.
I'm willing to do the parcel that we're taking for Cadillac Paint.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to, I think.
What was that one again? I'm sorry.
Where we're accepting the property from
Oh, yeah,
Schiavi
yeah,
for the
Schiavi,
little
yeah.
triangle next to
Yep.
Cadillac Paint.
Yes.
yeah, I could do the 41C and a half, if you want a breather, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That pretty much takes care of all of them.
Okay.
Okay. And that's all I have.
You're not gonna speak about the veterans lunch?
Oh, shoot, that's on the back
On the
page.
backside.
So yes, we will be having a veterans lunch at the community center on the 14th, starting at 12. It's sponsored by the police and fire departments. So right now they have a waiting list.
Yeah, they're full.
They're full. So,
Good,
but
that's a good thing.
hope to see you all there.
Is that,
Yeah. Now I'm
now
really
you're done? Now you're
You
really done?
didn't talk about health clinics.
No,
It's on there.
I know.
Okay.
So I've talked about.
But
health clinics once.
I'll just mention, I mean, Raj has been sending out on a regular basis, his notices of the clinics, which is great.
Yes, so glad you mentioned it. So we were going to do a clinic here at Town Hall on the 16th, but given the situation with paving, it's been moved to the community center.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I was just seeing if anybody would actually read this agenda.
Some of us look at the agenda, right, Ralph?
Yeah.
Study it. Just a quick question about the warrant, going back to the warrant. Are you doing like a pre-town meeting, like,
Not much
thing
time.
this, I mean, I know we have a week. Yeah.
I'm not going to do a forum, so Yolanda interviewed me for around the clock. What I'll do is I'll probably put that on our website.
Share that link with people, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. All right,
All
sounds
right.
good.
Will we as a board be meeting beforehand?
We're gonna post it, but I don't
Okay.
necessarily see a need to,
Okay,
but just in case.
yeah, okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right. So moving on to board reports. Joe, want to kick it off?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give kudos to our town clerk and her staff for a great job at the elections. They were very busy all day long and thankful that we had over 60.2%. That's amazing. That's totally amazing. We already talked about the special town meeting. We don't have to worry about that. 7 o'clock at the high school. We have an affordable trust meeting coming up on the 18th, Thursday, at 5 o'clock. And it's a Zoom meeting, so if you're more than welcome to attend. And we'll be talking about the inclusionary zoning bylaw at some point, and start working with a comprehensive plan committee group with respect to that, and hopefully we can get that as part of the agenda on that aspect of it. We're trying desperately. I know that we have an issue right now that we're dealing with. Just to give you all an update, quick one. Carl Galani Way. There's a unit up there that we've been dealing with, and it was off our ledger. Now it's going to be back on our ledger.
Oh, good.
So, well, it's still in the works.
Yep.
It's still in the works.
Still in the works.
But we're
Well,
in a
well,
better position
Than we were a few weeks
Yesterday,
ago.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, and thank Attorney Me for working on that with us. That's just wonderful. Quick update on the Halloween parade. We had 320 kids show up with their parents. It was an awesome day. Oh my God, it was the costumes were amazing. They were amazing. There was one individual that I did not see unless his costume was so great that I just didn't see it.
What did I have?
Let me see. Was it Casper the Ghost? It might have been. I don't know.
I couldn't
Anyway.
find the piece of granite to go in the wagon. Sorry.
But you know what? Everybody had a great time, and I just want to thank
You sold it all.
Superintendent Adams and Gina Wilkinson, who our new food service director. She was very accommodating with us, and we're very thankful for them all. And police and fire departments and both unions, respectfully, with their monetary help, and along with the Lions and Cobblestone and landscaping, and Lucky Farms with their support financially, and Bob Jemmer and his Metro West EMS services. They all helped out and contributed, and it made for a great night. It was a lot of fun, and by the time we got done, the custodian didn't have to worry about cleaning up because it didn't even look like we were there.
Nice.
So he was very grateful. And he
Very
was very
good.
grateful for the donuts and apple cider that was left over for his snacks. But other than that, it was a great time, and I would just like, One last thing. At our next meeting, could we put the Pledge of Allegiance back on the agenda?
Sure.
And it was brought up by my grandson. He says, how come you don't say that anymore?
Okay,
Hmm.
all right,
You know what? Good point.
that is a good point.
So,
right.
thank you, Madam Chair, if we can do that.
Yeah.
And that's all I have, and thank you again.
Not a problem. All right. Yolanda, you're up.
I am up. I apologize for not being at the Halloween party.
That's okay.
We had tickets to the show from Ashland Community Theater that night.
Dracula.
Couple things coming up on Monday, 11/14, at the Natick Senior Center at 3 p.m., the Metro West Regional Collaborative Trails meeting. We're going to try having these quarterly. We had one in August at Hopkinton State Park. It was well attended. So we're having this one on Monday in person in Natick. Next Tuesday night, we have a Mendez Building Committee meeting. We'll probably get a tour typically before we meet, and we do a walk through the building. Special town meeting is the 16th, as we've all talked about. And then on Thursday morning is the Leadership Metro West Alumni Breakfast, so I'm planning on going to that. And I rushed here today from the YMCA Dream Big event. It was, it's always great to see all the people there and who they honor, and so that was fun. And then, because we're not meeting, even though we have town meeting next week, an early happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Enjoy the time with family, and yes, I'm very relaxed. We had a great vacation.
That's all that matters. Good for you.
Okay, Steve, you're
My
up
turn.
next. Yep.
We have just a couple things. Number one, I'm hoping that at our December meeting, we can have our library director, Mina Jane, here for the review of the strategic plan. I think it would be important for the community. I know she's put a lot of effort into it, along with her staff and the trustees. I think you participated in that as well.
It's a great,
So I think it
lot of
was,
great stuff.
The library
know,
strategic plan?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, so I think it'd be important for the community and the taxpayers to hear about what she's doing there and, you know, what the staff is doing. So hopefully we can make that happen
I
soon.
talked to Mina. She had a conflict up through, I think, basically next week or so, and then she
Good,
said she
okay.
would be willing.
I'm
to
sure it'll
definitely
happen,
do it.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. So browsing through the MMA does their monthly Beacon newsletter, and a couple things kind of stood out. The updated stretch code, Michael, I don't think we've discussed it here at the board. I'm not quite sure if Sustainability Committee has got it on their radar, because there's substantial changes that are part of this updated stretch code, and it's something that does have to get passed by town meeting. Apparently we can choose not to update our stretch code, but seems counter to, you know, what we're trying to achieve here. But, so that's one thing that stood out. And then, looking at the classifieds in the back, in the town of Acton is actually hiring a DEI director. So diversity, inclusion, and
Equity.
equity and inclusion director. And it's kind of an interesting job description. Besides, you know, those kind of core attributes, they're also including civic engagement as part of that bundle for this position. I don't know if we're at that point yet, but it was interesting that some communities are hiring for these kinds of positions, so.
If we had a budget like Acton, we could do it.
No, I'm sure, you know, I didn't realize Acton has 24,000 people. I always thought it was a
little
a
bigger
farm
than us.
town,
Oh, they're
Yeah.
bigger,
you know?
yeah.
I didn't realize that. They're on Route 2, and they've, yes, so I
grew
guess
up
they
in
must have
Acton.
lots of apartments. Did you really?
ABRHS classes, I won't say what year.
Wow,
No, I'm a
okay.
high school grad, Acton, Boxborough graduate, yeah.
Interesting.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dual County.
Dual County League, we used to beat you guys real bad, I'm sorry. Ashland, you're too little.
You wanna go there?
And last thing on my list is just a reminder, the Ashland Farmers Market Thanksgiving, pre-Thanksgiving market is Saturday, the 19th, the week before Thanksgiving. It's 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. modified. And lastly, shop local, think globally, and shop locally.
Yep.
All right, thanks, Steve. Rob, you're up.
Yeah, I didn't have anything except I did want to second kind of Joel's remarks and concerns. You know, most of us aren't as detail-oriented as him about bicycles and stuff, but I hope we can, so I don't agree 100% with all his concerns, but, and I certainly appreciate Yolanda looking into that crossing. So, you know, I hope we can address these issues, especially on 126, because now's the time to make sure that it gets done, as opposed to, you know, looking at it for years and saying, geez, I wish they'd done that a little better, you know, that kind of thing. So I appreciate Joel bringing that up, and hope we can address those concerns that he's brought up with that. And, you know, I'm looking forward to comprehensive plan. One of the things is actually looking at a sidewalk plan, a pedestrian plan, a bicycle access plan, and that kind of thing to kind of add to our, you know, safe streets kind of, and complete streets.
Complete streets, safe streets plan?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. And, you know, really start getting it together so that we do a comprehensive review every year when we're doing our street work. So, anyway,
Well,
that's all I had.
Rob, would there be a component for educating the bike riders that want to travel on the roadway as a vehicle, and that they need to uphold the same laws that a motor vehicleist has to follow? And the only reason
That's a
why I
good
say
point.
that,
Yeah.
the only reason why I say that is that the other day, my wife and I were driving down Main Street. Now, it's difficult because of the road that has already been, you know, dug up and stuff. And I saw there was a bicyclist, you know, right to my right. So I thought he was going straight. Ah, he wasn't going straight. He turned left right in front of me as I started turning left. And thankfully, my wife said, Joe,
Yeah,
I would have, it just, you know, they need to realize they have to follow the same
yeah,
rules of the road.
it's a good point about safety, and you really need to know how to ride in the streets.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
I think most, you know, certainly most serious bicycle riders, and I'll use, you know, Joe and his club as an example, you know, know that and follow the rules of the law, just as if they were in a car. But unfortunately, there's folks that don't signal, just like drivers don't signal. It's the same mentality. You know, the real issue though is, you know, you're on a bicycle, you're exposed, and, you know, when you're dealing with aggressive drivers, that's a problem. And unfortunately, we've got too many aggressive drivers out on our roads these days. And so, you know, to go to Joel's point and your point about safety, it's you know, it's a big deal.
Thank you.
You all set? You
Yep.
good? Okay. I just have a couple things. One, Michael, Diane, and I met last Friday with Representative Jack Lewis and Karen Edelman Foster from Senate President Spilka's office, and a couple staffers from Jack Lewis's office too. Jack had put together a meeting that's going to be kind of like on a quarterly basis, just so we can all kind of touch base. It's not taking the place of them coming in front of us and doing a legislative update, which we're still trying to get on the Senate President's calendar, which is tough. So we're still waiting on a date from her, but we are like going to meet with them just on a quarterly basis, just as sort of more communications, what's happening in our town and what's happening. Yeah, more coordination. So just want to let you guys know that is going to be happening, or it has started to happen.
Well, you're going to report on the discussions, or?
So, I mean, last week we talked about our moratorium that we're putting forward. We were talking about a lot of the specifically like the economic development bill that is been in the works. We talked about, in fact, Representative Lewis was talking about the fact that if we have veterans that have passed away in Ashland, we can work with him to help honor those veterans and residents of Ashland. So if we know of a vet that we would like to honor, or someone in the community would like to honor, we can reach out to Representative Lewis, and he can help with that. I think he said they flew a flag over the Capitol recently, so or and there's also some talk about local bridges being named in after some veterans. So And then I'm trying to think of anything else that that they shared that,
What I was really interested in, I guess Jack has a map that shows the roads that are state maintained
oh, yeah.
versus locally maintained. I'd like to see that.
That's good to see.
So,
Oh, wow.
Exactly what your heart. I mean, because that's been a debate sometimes, right? I think about 135 and Franklin Street, Olive Street, that intersection. Is it ours? Is it the state's? And how do we?
Quotable road,
Yeah,
Ponderosa Road.
Right, right.
That's
Right.
key,
yeah,
especially with the bridge.
yeah,
Hello.
yeah, no, that's, yeah.
it'd be good to see.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention is I received an email from the MWRTA this morning about a breakfast that they're having this upcoming Monday, November 14th at 8:30 at their location in Framingham. And they're going to be, President Spilka will be in attendance. Our legislative delegation will be there, and then also meeting their new directors. So I can't make it, so I was just throwing this out if somebody from the board wanted to represent. Monday the 14th, this upcoming Monday at 8:30 in Framingham.
You able to go?
On the
I
Blandon.
can make it.
You can,
You have to go, I mean, I'll put it on my schedule. Do we have to make
I have to,
reservations?
I have to,
No, we all should have gotten, I got the email as well.
Oh, maybe I just haven't seen it yet.
Check your emails, it came out.
I'll look at it in ours,
I think it came
but
out
it's good if somebody's going, sure.
Yeah.
Maybe 8:30,
okay,
think about it.
so,
They're having this, there's a session, and then I think they're having a meeting or something
At
as
10
well, so I
o'clock.
think it's till like 11 or 11:30, and
Yeah.
with the lunch, and I have other stuff, so.
okay.
Think about it.
So,
So I will,
Okay.
I can certainly go on the early end.
okay,
You know, we do our senior lunch every
Oh,
Monday.
it's
so
8:30, right?
and it's Monday too, so
It
it's
is
the
Monday,
veterans.
So I would leave, you know, probably 10 o'clock or before they hold, they're probably having a board meeting.
Yeah.
And I would leave before then, but I could at least represent the town.
Okay, thank you for doing that. Yeah, I'm in Boston on Monday, so I can't,
I have the Metro West Regional Collaborative event in the afternoon, so I can't do 3 things that day.
I have to sleep late.
I do have to work.
No, I'm just kidding.
I'll call you, I'll remind you.
do you want me to have, put you down as well, or do you want me to have Steve represent for us?
Yeah, why don't you,
I'll pick
I
Rob up.
can't commit right now.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
gotta check review my schedule for
Okay.
Monday. I might have to go to work. Yeah, I'll probably be around,
Okay,
yeah,
we can travel together.
yeah, okay.
All right, thank you for representing.
Yeah.
And that is, all I have for tonight, so,
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Happy
great. So
Thanksgiving, everybody.
we are adjourned. It's
Stay safe.
9:23, so our next regularly scheduled meeting is the 30th, yeah, the last day, the last Wednesday in November. So we will meet the 30th, and then we will meet again on the 7th.
And we hope to see all of you at town meeting next Wednesday.
Absolutely, 7 o'clock at the high school, so.
And go
great.
Clockers.
All right. All right, thank
Thanksgiving
you,
football
everyone.
game.
Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Good night.
You all.
Good night.